Alright, hello Ikoa and Co. Today I'll go over my units that I've built for Guild War, as I am a Guild War main, and I'll give a short explanation as to why I have them built the way they are. And yeah, let's just begin. Alright, first of all, we have my Zahak. He's 260 speed to be used as an opener in combination with other units, but also 100% crit chance. The 100% crit chance is mostly there to deal with crit resistance units, like for example Senya, Shu, and recently the Navy Captain Landy. And the 260 speed is there to be comboed with other units, for example with Straze. Also, the fact that he is 260 speed allows me to use attack set boots on him, so we'll go with this and here. And this will give him a little bit more offenses at no loss for crit damage in my case. Of course other boots do that. And this allows him to combo with other units, for example Moon Bunny Dominial, or another different CR pusher like Sinful Angelica, or even Watcher Shuri as a follow-up to him if you need to kill something with Watcher Shuri first. Same goes for Straze here. He is at base 240 speed and he will always need 4k attack. This is for him to have the highest opportunity to be able to get the attack difference required to kill a unit. 270 crit damage is kind of on the low side, but it is what it is. And similarly to Zahak, you can also slow him down by just putting attack set boots on him, or attack main set. So as you can see over here, he drops down to 195 speed, or sometimes 207, 203. Once again, this is used as follow-ups. For example, Watcher Shuri goes first, kills a Karina, and then he can follow up and kill the highest HP target, or he goes after a Zahak who needs to go after a Moon Bunny Dominion. You can just speed tune them. And he will destroy higher HP targets, like he does upwards of 50k. Milim is one of the units that I really enjoy using. For example, the old, that's now currently old, Savior Aiden. No, it was the Shu, Winter, Senya team, right? The one that a lot of people struggled with. You do Immunity Bazaar, you do Immunity Senya, and you do Milim. Milim will take the Winter out of stealth while not getting targeted by Winter herself at first. She can soul burn into either the Shu or into the Winter, and then finish it off with S3. Then she will get a dodge, increase evasion here, right, 50%, which allows her to survive a lot better against the rest of the comp. And she will just be contributing. You need a little bit of effective HP on her, even though evasion is a thing. We all know that 50-50s are actually 100% for the right side teams, but thankfully due to her EE, it's a lot easier to build. I personally go with the heal EE here. It's easiest to use. It allows her to get a little bit more sustain even, and I go with 220 speed to be able to cycle a little bit more. For Spirit Eye Celine, there's two major builds that are floating around. I don't have the gear for the secondary build, but this is the build that I'm currently using for both defense and for offense. The reason I'm using this for offense as well is because this allows her to cycle even more. And it allows her to increase her own attack, right, against non-attack skills. Due to the penetration set, I'm able to deal with a lot of units. I usually combine this unit with something like an Adventurer Raz, or something else that can provide shields, or mitigation at least, at the very least an Aureus, right? That way she cannot be 2-tapped, and she needs to be 3-tapped, which is very nice. The fact that she's at 260 speed alongside this allows her to cut a lot of units, allows you to build up your invulnerability or immortality, and you'll be perfectly safe. Due to the buff to the S1, she actually heals enough to sustain herself, especially at this speed where you're just cycling and cycling and cycling. The secondary build is about 220 to 230 speed on lifesteal and penetration set. Same kind of build, no defense, no health, and just full damage. It's a little bit safer if you are worried about her dying. But I currently found that the faster build is superior, but it's obviously just an objective opinion, subjective opinion. Savior Aiden, this is purely built for defense. I don't use it for offense. What I did was I got a little bit of EHP. This way a normal D Corvus S3 with an Arrowell shield and Arrowell, what do you call it, escort doesn't immediately kill me while still maintaining high offenses. I went for penetration set so that in case something does get hit by my S3, it hurts. And usually you combine this with a much faster unit that allows you for dual attacking or is the primary focus for the enemy. For example, currently Navy Captain Landy, which is a big target for a lot of people, with a Celilius, or even with like Iran, other units, right? Ahmed, that just make her survive a little bit more. Very good unit on defense, got me quite a few defense draws already, quite happy with it. Arbiter Filter just for farming, 220 speed, you know, the works. Ida's a little bit of a special case here. Mine's, as you can see, on Rage set, and there's a very specific reason for that. I combine her specifically in one team for Guild War, and that is with Ran and Astromancer Elena. It's 2 non-attack skills, and it gives me an extra book in total. So I can Soulburn the Ran, then my Astromancer Elena follows up, and then Ida can clean up, right, with the Soulburn. Then you have three debuff chances. You have defense break, stigma, and you have I think it's unbuffable from Astromancer Elena. I need to check. And then because of the rage set, right, whenever you have a debuff target, you just do so much damage. And because of the double non-attack skill from Astromancer Elena, who boosts herself up after an AoE, she goes all the way up to 300 plus speed. It's a very niche build. If you want to go with the more standard build, you're looking at speed set and crit set, but you're looking at about 250 speed with 100% crit chance and a lot of attack stats. Very similar to this, I'd say at least 3.5k attack and 280 crit damage would be the minimum, I'd say. But this is my current build. This works extremely well, but it's a very, very niche comp with low flexibility. Alright, Benimaru. Yes, I do have an SS and I do have a Touchy at plus 30. I did invest all my slates and my vials, potions into this. I still miss one slate, but that will be coming next season, and then I will be able to make him even stronger. As you can see, I have a little bit of EHP here on him. It's just to prevent him from dying to random like defenses that have a weird turn order and that do end up going first before my Benimaru. We have seen some scenarios where just having this little bit of EHP allows him to survive. You don't really need it in most cases. The comps that you do bring him into usually have a non-attack skill, and then immediately Benimaru goes. And if stuff is still alive after that, then you brought Benimaru into the wrong comp. Usually you can use them with Benimaru's Tachi, but for example, versus Remnant Violet, versus Savior Aiden, you will need Symbol of Unity. Aside from that, very simple unit to build. You don't even need to skill up as S1. You can if you want to, but just S3 and S2 is enough. This is leftover gear. This is not the correct build. This should even be on Windrider, because that's the only way he can function. I just have him on leftover gear. Nothing special. I don't actually use him. Operator Sigrid has gotten some relevance again, due to the fact that there are some more shielding comms, and she's just really good into those. Still a niche unit. Do not recommend to build her as soon as possible if you have other units to build, but yeah, here's mine. I do run a portrait just for more damage at the start. This cannot kill an Apocalypse Ravi and Proof of Valor, for example, so you do have to still be careful what you target. Alright, Bright Witch Assyria. In most cases, I will leave her on Misha, but there are opportunities, because it's not max, right, that you will need to swap it to Symbol of Unity or another hit chance artifact like Oath Key, right, to fully have a hit chance on Savior Aiden. I did lose an attack last season, not this season, but last season, due to missing this 4% over 11 times. Yeah, that was not fun. Immunity is there just to have some weird Senya builds and stuff like that are really fast, prevented from getting debuffed. Anything that doesn't strip and debuff, just to keep her alive, because while she is relatively fast, if she gets controlled, she doesn't do anything. She has no defense stats, right? So I do want to keep the immunity on it. Sometimes I have Torrent set on her if I do really want to do more damage. And don't sweat it too much about the immunity. Just make sure that you have like information or that you're guaranteed to go first. I should model this. Okay, unbutton on Arrow. Some pieces are unreforged. These are pieces that are recently rolled, and I even have 78 boots here because those were just the best ones that I have. As you can see, 88 gear score here with 29, 22. Very good. I want to swap this effectiveness to defense, but I don't really want to use a good gem that I have in my inventory on the 78 boot, right? That's not happening. But yeah, as you can see, I run relatively high HP. This will be 26k once I reforge this chest. And I do run 50% effectiveness and 150% effect resistance. I do personally believe that these are the minimum. 180 speed is probably the minimum where you should be as well. Preferably 200 speed. I just didn't have the gear for it to reach with these stats. This is just leftover gear that I built for CP. Yeah, so Celine, I go with a very tanky build. What we have noticed, or at least I have noticed, is that a lot of units that you fight, either if you go full damage, right, you overkill like mad, or it's still not enough. So what happens afterwards, the turn afterwards, they're specifically tuned to counter Celine. So what they do is they make sure that you die afterwards, right? So that's why I go a little bit more tanky, a little bit more safe. This is just a filler artifact for the CP right now for World Boss. Usually I go with Storm Sword on this, and I go with the highest attack each EE. In some cases, the stealth one is better. It's very rarely though. Aside from that, very solid unit. This will take out any squishies that you're intending to kill. And obviously it will not take out bruisers, but neither would a full DPS one, so you might as well give up on that part and just go for a little bit more defense and survivability. Landy's on leftover gear, just for PvE. Luna is just a cleave unit in case I do want to one-shot something with like a fast booster. This would be a portrait, but I currently have all my portraits are taken. I have a little bit of EHP on her for PvE as well, so there's that, and I have the perfect 350 crit damage because the number is white and not red. Sermia once again PvE, follows up with defense breaks and all that stuff. Good enough unit. Spectre Tenebria, she's currently on Destruction set because it's the most value set that you can get for any unit below 220 speed. She has quite a lot of defense and quite a lot of health. This is just there so she can survive AoE attacks and you can survive the opening phase, which allows her to unlock afterwards. You can run either crit set or penetration set. I personally run penetration set because it's you can get way more value from the first S1 soul burn into the S3, and the turns afterwards you probably already won the game because something has already been killed. So that's why I run relatively high offenses comparatively and still defenses, so I can use her in a multitude of compositions. Astromancer Elena, she is at 200 speed and 350 crit damage, a lower attack, because when I do want to use my Ran, Ida, and Astromancer Elena team, what I primarily want is Silver Rain from Ran to go onto the Ida. And because she does have this 15% attack buff that she gets, and same as crit damage, she very quickly goes over the attack of Ida, which forces Silver Rain to go onto Astromancer Elena, which is something you absolutely do not want. So therefore, I just max out her crit damage, even though I didn't have to, and I lowered her attack to be within below Ida's. Even with this, she reaches 3.7 or 3.8k attack because of the buff, and it was a pain in the ass to tune. So therefore, Destruction set, higher crit damage values, and of course, Unseen Observer is the thing that allows me to get the extra soul burn, because Ran S2 S3 plus Elena S3 plus this will give me enough souls to soul burn Ida afterwards. Ran is on a very generic build, just fast, well, relatively fast, and DPS just to soften targets up, and all that really matters is that this is the highest effect chance, because you will soul burn him on turn 1 with the specific team that I run. That's all. Alright, we have Aras here, mostly PvE. He has effectiveness, effect resistance, but he also is viable for Guild War. I use him with Bastion of Perlucia a lot, which allows me to protect the Spirit Eye Celine, the Zahak, all these units against like Luas and stuff. I go with higher HP on him, just because of his scalings and his what do you call, recovery from the S3. Allows him to survive for longer. And even if he's on Aureus and not on Bastion of Perlucia, you want higher HP, because that way the damage share isn't as hurtful on you. My pride and joy, Karina, my main unit, my profile unit, and everything. I have her 3000 defense, 18.2k health, 96 effect resistance, and 180 speed. If you're struggling with like Spirit Isolene comps, Spirit Isolene Aiden, for example, or other units that are like very reliant on not getting crit, Karina is one of the best units you can get. While she still can crit, just make sure that her crit chance is as low as possible. And she even works really well against like Navy Captain Landy. It's one that I constantly use her into. And she's just very good at like interrupting cleaves, right? So you put like a squishy unit there, like Briar Witch's Area, like a Kayron, anything that like gets hit by AoE, and then Karina, due to her passive, like 50% combat readiness, is able to interrupt the next inline character, and you can just destroy shit. Absolutely amazing unit. Probably one of the best call-up units we've ever had, with maybe the only person being Rimuru, who was better at the time. Dark Corvus, big chunk, 32k HP, 1500 defense is what I'd say is the minimum. Same for speed, 180 is in my opinion the minimum, and 100 effect resistance is still useful to resist provokes. While he cannot be stunned anymore, there's still other crowd control effects that can affect him, like blind, provoke, and all these other things, redirected provoke and stuff. So 100 effectiveness, while it's not the highest, 120 would be ideal. It's still there to prevent random debuffs from landing. I put him on Sepulchrum because usually the teams that you run him into are going to target him. And because he's relatively slow and he doesn't have Durandal or a built-in Durandal effect, he usually will get hit at least 2 times, at which point you will be taking less damage than a depleted Proof of Valor, because depleted Proof of Valor will only protect you for 15%, and getting hit twice will protect you from 16%, and it goes all the way up to 32%, right? So the slower you are, the better this becomes, or the faster the enemy team is, right? Last piece, Karen, I need to finish her Awakenings, which will put her at 260 speed. This is primarily used, once again, as a Remnant Violet counter, a Savior Aiding counter, where I need to hawk in a different team. Great unit, great against dodge, great against evasion, violets, and all that stuff. Just works. Even at this build, it still works. Like, she has enough attack. Aradel is just there for memes right now. Generally, she doesn't even need a second turn because she goes into stealth after doing her S3, S2? Yeah, stealth, 2. And a barrier, so she's like very well protected, and in case you do get the extra attack, it's just kind of funny. Generally speaking, you put her on Symbol of Unity or Oath Key to be able to hit targets and have evasion and built-in evasion. Meteor Carrick, a very standard build. I have noticed that I needed the effectiveness to dispel certain Senyas and shoes and stuff, so I did put some effectiveness on him. I sacrificed a little bit of EHP, but he's used very often in combination with Lone Crescent Bellona and other units like Spirit Isolene as a dark tank. While his stats are pretty mediocre for a tank, it's still pretty up there, and the fact he has effectiveness and he has Warhorn to keep cycling him, right? He has a shield on his S2, he has an immunity and increased attack on his S3, and then he has a CR push on his S1. Like, he's too good of a unit to not have built if you do have him. Watcher Shuri, full damage. I wanted him at 240 speed so that I had a little bit more leeway when it comes to the speed imprint when I use him, for example, as the opener. When I use him as the opener, what I mean is that I have like a Sinful Angelica or a Moon Bunny Dominion that is faster than him, which you'll see down the line. And then he goes first, he nukes the Karina, right? And then your follow-up, which is usually as a Hawk, a Wayang, an Arunka, a Straze, right, is able to deal with the highest HP targets, which usually is the second DPS, and then all you're left with is the opponent's support, usually an Ahmed, a Sililius, all this stuff that you don't really care for. At that point, you've already won, and that's why he's at 230 speed and not like 180 or something else. Preferably, I would put him at 240 specifically for Guild War, but it also means he's better in RTA if you do play RTA at 240 speed. but I just didn't have the damage numbers anymore, even with Portrait, to kill even my own Karina. So I was like, okay, I need to be careful. I need to lower his speed a little bit so that I can get the damage numbers, and which made me put him at 230 speed. Pirate Captain Flan, very fun unit. She only needs 3000 attack. She does need maxed out Star to Deep Sea. As you can see, I haven't really put any skill points in it because, frankly, neither of the S3 or the S1 are needed. The damage doesn't scale with the bombs, so there's that, at least not to my knowledge. The S3 would be nice to have the extra cooldown, but I usually don't even use it. Very good into stuff like Kairon and other things like Briarwatch area where you can just steal the immortality, which is great. Destina has a very specific build. This is built for the Decorvus Cleave, and the Decorvus Cleave is my Iseria that has Unseen Observer, and then my Destina, which boosts up to Decorvus and cleanses him from any provokes or anything, and then Decorvus can soul put his S3 straight into a target and extinct it. A lot of people run her slower at like 200 and sometimes even at 180 with higher defenses so that she doesn't die, but I prefer this build. This gives her a lot of flexibility. Aside from the effect resistance, which gets boosted by her, there we go, 60% from the S3 passive, puts her 270 effect resistance. With this, I get another 15, so I'm looking at 285 effect resistance. If you're able to debuff my Destina at that point, with a Christie in the team as well, which gives Bastion to everyone, you deserve to win, right? If that happens, then GG to you. Generally, if you do have that much effectiveness on the unit, you're not going to be any danger to me, so it is whatever. Alright, Zeo. Zeo is primarily used for my defense. I have him at 260 speed, so that the passive puts him at 320 speed, which fortunately is within speed RNG range of a lot of cleave units. I went for the higher effectiveness build so that I can debuff Destinas if I would really want to, because with 205 effectiveness and Bloody Rose, I have a 253, if my maths are correct, effectiveness at the start of the turn. And this is usable on both RTA and just Guild War. His damage is very low, but I made sure that I get 50% crit chance and a lot of defenses to be able to live. You could also run him on Chatty for more survivability and more annoyance, but then you do have to know that you will give up the effectiveness, and in my personal opinion and my personal experience, it just doesn't work as well. Senya, I have her at a very specific build as well. I have a little bit of effectiveness and decent tanky stats and very high attack, comparatively speaking, for this build. The reason for this is I use her to counter Shu, I use her to counter Senya, and I use her to counter other units that cannot be crit, for example, Spirit Eye Celine, Navy Captain Landy, right? Anything that doesn't have permanent immunity. The reason I have immunity on her specifically is because I do use her a lot into the Winter, Shu, Senya teams, for example. Because as long as I do not get provoked on the first turn, I can provoke them on the first turn, right? And if Winter controls me by S3ing either my Bazaar or my Senya, at that point it becomes a little bit more iffy because I will not get the first provoke off and I have a chance of getting provoke locked. The reason I went with effectiveness over effect resistance is because I want to provoke them. If I provoke them, they cannot do their skills, and therefore they have to go into me and they get hit by the retaliation damage and my Spear of Adudon with my 5.2k attack and greater attack buff, right? Which will give me like 10, 12k attack or something if everything is calculated the way I think it is. So yeah, there's that. And shit dies. It is really fun. There's a really fun attacks. Shadow Rose built for Banshee. This is my opener for Banshee. Nothing very interesting. Crow. I tried to get him to 120 effect resistance, but I'm missing 1 point. The reason I lowered him to 160 speed is because what I've noticed that people are building units to go after your Crow so that you cannot horse them on turn 1 with your traditional 200 and 180 speed builds. This is not an RTA build. Let me get that straight up here. This is purely for Guild War. And this is meant to like go after certain units so that you can you can S3 them on the first turn, right? It's a little bit of a mind game, a cat and mouse game, but the lower speed Crow is, honestly, the better it is, but you don't need it too slow because then he goes after your healer and it gets a little bit iffy, but yeah. 160 seems to be the sweet spot for me, so that's where I have him at, and this allows me to go after like full damage Rimarus and all that stuff without too many issues. If you do want to use him without Aureus, for example, he's the main focus, put him on either Proof of Valor, put him on Noble Oath, put him on other mitigation artifacts, right, like Adamant Shield, just to protect him as well. My Magic Scholar Doris has been seeing more and more use lately. As you can see, I don't have the highest EHP on her, but I do have 200 effect resistance. This is purely there for the same reason as the Stina. If you debuff me at this point with a random DPS, then I deserve to lose, but this is primarily used as an Apocalypse Ravi counter, and any other dark units like Remnant Violet that will just keep feeding me with Water's Origin, my defense buff, and just allow me to cycle and cycle and cycle. That's why she's at least 180 speed. Ideally you want her at 200, but it is what it is. Just a random arena build, nothing really useful because she doesn't even have effect resistance. Plus 30 Spear's Breath, very annoying, but hey, that's what it is. Politis, used specifically against Ahmed, Kise, I forgot what the other unit was, I think Senya. Teams where we are able to interrupt their cycling. It cuts the enemy CR push in half, including Ahmed's, and therefore we can do a lot of funny things. We use Benimaru, Politis, and Summertime Iseria just to boost ourselves up past them and reduce their CR push. And then Benimaru will always go first, he will always be able to interrupt, and the S2 will not trigger the Aiden S2, so despite her getting a... just make sure that she's slow, right? 200 is the highest that you can go. And you can even put her on Fairy Tail just to do a little bit more chip damage, but mine is only plus 15 and it's usually taken by Arya. But very fun unit, we use her quite a bit, even though the meta is slowly starting to change, but still a good unit. I have some bulk on her, just to take random hits like the 8 and S2, for example, my CR push goes all the way wrong. I see CR RG myself or whatever, right? So she can survive like an 8 and S2 and all that stuff. Elena, very interesting unit to have right now, especially with all the Rand, Senya, Lilius teams. You need a little bit of effect resistance to resist the Rand S3s. In most cases, though, I put her on Bastion because... I put her on Bastion so that she will have like 337, I think. Effect resistance, and therefore even the effectiveness rounds can't hurt her, and then she just boosts up far enough because effectiveness rounds are usually slower, right? Put up invulnerability on everyone and I just laugh, right? Winter purely for defense, 100% crit chance, 180 effectiveness, and Alabastron so that I get 35 effectiveness at the start, and a random debuff chance, and that puts me at 220 effectiveness at the start, which debuffs a lot of things. Suri is just for PvE, Kaidas, just garbage build, don't look at it. Arya, very, 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 very often used. You want at least 2k defense on her. I don't have any imprints, so I'm scuffed. And while I was running 13.3k HP before and more effect resistance, I've gotten really close to dying. So I've upped her health and lowered her effect resistance by 10. Just to get 1.5k more health. 160 speed is a very good point to be at and allows me to run Fairy Tail quite a bit because of my defenses. This is often paired with Christie, who has 280 effect resistance, which puts her at 263 effect resistance out of the box, which is very solid and prevents her from a lot of debuffs, including Luas and all that stuff that can reset her. If you do face a Lua with extremely high effectiveness and you're aware of this, just put Tagahals on her and you can cycle out of it with just a soul burn on the S1. I do say that Fairy Tail for Nightmare is a best in slot artifact in most cases against like a Senya or a Navy Captain Lani. The extra damage is what allows you to kill them before they can infinitely sustain themselves. Aside from that, pair her with like a Rowana, with a Destina, to boost her up before the enemy team, and you're generally always fine. You don't need a lot of crit damage on her. Keep that in mind. You want to be able to live, and as long as you live, they will die. All right. Don't focus too much on the damage on her. Focus on sustainability and Fairy Tail. You'll kill nearly every defense. I use her at least once every guild war. Most likely on one attack, sometimes two attacks, and sometimes even all three attacks. Pylus, just slow, tanky, HP defense. All she needs to do is sit there, take hits, take names, and then just laugh at them as the Navy Captain Landy doesn't do anything because of her nice little passive, right? Navy Captain Landy does this a lot, therefore you will get defense buff almost all the time. You have Provoke, you have Barrier, you have Cleanse. Way too good of a unit. Her passive also, let's see how you go there. There is something, yeah, you have increased hit chance against like Aiden and stuff, and you also have the combat readiness, and there's also one that gives you less damage from, yeah, I don't see what it is, but less damage from dual attacks. Yeah, here, 30%, right? So dual attack, extra attack, and counter attacks get reduced by 30%. 3-0, that's a lot. Very solid unit. Very good at Conceal Elias, very good at Navy Captain Landy, very good against a lot of other things. Shu, Senya, all these units, right? Counter Maru for defense, not finished right now. I need to reforge this, but as you can see, I don't have gold, so yay. Apocalypse Ravi still used in certain comps that are slowly coming back, which are really ancient, but generally not used, just very high, or relatively high defenses with relatively decent crit damage. I need to reforge this piece, but once again, no resources. Yulha wanted a safer units to bring into Guild War. She will usually be run on Aureus, but as you can see, my Aureus is currently taken. I need to level up another one. You can bring this into almost every winter, every other fire target unit like Jacko, Zio Jacko, right? Just slap her in there and she will eventually do her thing. She doesn't need to be fast. I would suggest a little bit of effect resistance, a little bit of effectiveness. Therefore the redirect provoke can hit, and that will force them into you, and therefore you will be able to proc your S2 more. You dispel everything, you get your murderous intent, and you do more damage, right? Sinful Angelica, this is a very niche pick against Zio. Well, not niche, but like a pick that we like to do. I have 260 speed and 260 effect resistance. I thought it was a funny number, so I kept it that way. And I run her on Bastion of Hope. Now, even my Zio cannot debuff this, right? With Bastion of Hope, we're looking at 70 on top of this, which is 330 effect resistance. Even my Zio cannot debuff this. This is used as a start. Then we follow up with usually as a Hawk or a Straze, right? Because the Zio will always attack the highest CR unit. And since he can only do up to 50%, she will never die, even with these stats. The only thing you need to be worried about is that she doesn't get pushback or silenced, right? And therefore we have super high effect resistance, and this will allow you to cleanse anything as well. You get CR push from her EE. You heal, you know, all these good things that she does. An alternative to this is General Purgus, to have him go first. But honestly, we don't really differentiate between these two. It's just that this is also useful against Mercedes and other revive units like Arbiter Voldrin and stuff. You can use the same unit. Also gives a tag buff, right, without having to attack an enemy, which is great. As mentioned before, my Asaria is used with my Destina and Decorvus. She goes first, she does S2 onto the Decorvus, and then she S3 is like a Sililius or something. Destina pushes up the Decorvus, the Decorvus takes out the Senya or the Shu or the Mercedes or whatever you want, right? And then it's a 2v3 situation, therefore she has a little bit of tankiness. If you wanted to use it for PvE, you need to get effectiveness and crit chance, but I don't have the gear for that, so I just went with effectiveness for a little bit for PvE use and just high tankiness. Unseen Observer is a must. This allows you to do the soul burn thing on the Corvus, and you only need a +0, as you can see. I really should level it up, but I'm very lazy. Rowana, two different builds here, either very slow and super tanky with like 25k HP on counter set, for example, or a little bit faster like I have here, so that you can go before like an Aria or something else, right, to heal them back up. Shimada Staff, in my opinion, is best in slot artifact. A lot of people want to Stella Harpa on her, and you do need a little bit of effect resistance. I do need to still reforge this, but yeah, you know. Alencia, unfortunately a unit that has fallen out of the meta quite a bit. Very risky unit to use nowadays, but still usable. Mine is relatively tanky, 180 speed and 90% crit chance with the Edward artifact, because this way I like to stack this up, which is, in my opinion, pretty great. You could also run this on Proof of Valor or with Alance Noxus Wrath if you do have 85% crit chance or 100%. She doesn't need a lot of damage. Trust me guys, she will eventually kill. Defense break is very strong, 70% defense reduction with a soul burn that can guarantee it. Well, not guarantee, but 100%. You don't need a lot of offenses on her. Just focus on defenses that she lives and a little bit of crit damage. I'd say 230 is probably the minimum that you need for her to be effective. I did go with 47 effectiveness because I have found this unit to sometimes fail defense breaking, the simplest of things, as a resistance, right? So units that have like random 100% effect resistance, I needed the effectiveness here just to be able to defense break them alongside this one, Mindful Eye. So I'm looking at 100 effectiveness on my Alencia, which allows me to defense break like effective resistance Crows, effective resistance Senyas, you know, all the shenanigans. This is not required. I just did it because, well, I had the gear laying around. Moon Bunny the Minial, she will be 260 speed after I reforged this probably. Yep. And 140 effect resistance. This is completely unnecessary. So are the defense stats, because the Moon Bunny the Minial does, she goes into Celilius or like something else that has an extra turn. She procs her S2, right? Immunity, barrier, great. Effect resistance as well. And then you finish her S3 and then everything dies. Right? So you don't need defense, you don't need health, you don't need effect resistance, you don't need effectiveness. You just need to have like a speed level which allows you to open faster than your DPS, or in some cases it doesn't even matter. For example, Sahak, as long as he doesn't get, because he can cleanse himself, right? Benimaru and stuff as well. But this is just a very valuable unit to protect your slower DPS and all that stuff. And then you have a 20% CR push. Doctor's Bag is unfortunately a necessity in most cases. There are a lot of comps where you get hit by 2 debuffs or even more, and you really want the Doctor's Bag to be able to cleanse. Rimuru is a very niche unit for me right now. It's usually used into Ran Caesarea, which is still being ran. I don't know why, but it is. Relatively tanky, but that's because he has buff scaling on his S3, right? 10,000 fixed damage. Just a little bit of offense is nice. 230 is probably the minimum, I'd say. I currently am at 230 because 200 attack equals 20 crit damage, and therefore I'm at 3k 230, which is what I'd say is like the minimum. Then get him on immunity, pen, and crit. And get as much tanky stats as possible, because all you need for him to do is survive, to do his S3, and then you laugh at him. Edward Elric, mine is currently on injury. Reason for that is the speed build currently is no longer needed. He is at 200 speed so that he can still get targeted by Zeos, to trigger my Karina, for example, who would be lower speed than him, right? 180 versus 200. And this allows me to deal with Aravis, this allows me to deal with Shoes, this allows me to deal with Alencias, this allows me to deal with a lot of units like the Steedas, Rowanas, all these high sustain units or HP scaling units. He has a very good CR cycling here with the S3 given 50% and the S2 also gives him 20%, right? So he has a lot of good scaling, a lot of CR pushing, so he doesn't need to be super fast. Mine is not as tanky as I'd like it to be, but I simply don't have the gear for it because I don't farm Kaidos, right? Seaside Bologna, mine's currently on a lifesteal build. Very niche unit that I still use or still is usable because of the lifesteal. Slap it behind a good HP heavy tank like Troublemaker Crozet, Araz, and all these units, and you just have something that will keep killing things over and over and over again with the rest too, right? Combine this with Lone Crest and Bologna, you kind of just laugh your ass off. Tamarin, PvE unit, whatever. Bazaar, this is the Bazaar that I use for the Winter Shoes Senya team, and the Winter Shoes something else team, Savior Aiden. The beauty of this is that I have immunity on him. This prevents the Senya from debuffing him, and therefore he will be able to use his S3 on a soul burn, which will prevent him from getting buffed with a lot of stuff, and you just prevent the Stenya from getting like the counterattack buff, greater attack buff, shields, you know, all that shenanigan. Charles is for Banshee, perfectly tuned at a perfect MCD to be able to kill but not to trigger the Banshee. Lionheart Sermia post buff, I've reduced her speed a little bit from 170 to 140. I've increased her HP from 14k to 15k, and I've increased her effectiveness from 30 to 67 to synergize with her S2. So now she has 117 effect resistance. I did run into an issue a lot where she would get CR locked, CC locked. And now because of her passive, where she gets 20% combat readiness, right, makes her a lot better and allowed me to run more damage, more effect resistance, and more HP at a lower speed. Now that she has the option to get CR pushed a lot, right? Aside from that, unfortunately, just a worse aria. I also have 150 more defense. She's just worse aria in most cases. Still used, still very annoying. If you want to have aria on 2 teams, usually you can replace 1 team with the Lionheart Sermia team. Rowana, Pylus, you know, standard fare. And yeah, she just does her job, what she needs to do. She does good damage, good defense scaling. She has effect resistance, and Proof of Valor is what I run. You can also run Draco Plate or any other damage artifact if you want to speed things up. I just prefer survivability. As long as I'm alive, they will eventually die. So that's my philosophy. Champions Rado for PvP, PvE I mean, just for hell rate and stuff. Christie, 280 effect resistance because of her S2. Yeah, effect resistance of the ally in the back row increases by 50% of the caster's effect resistance. This allows my Aria to have the 270 something effect resistance. And you can run this either on Aureus to protect your Aria and give her more defense even, or you can run her on Bastion, which allows her to give more effect resistance to herself, which she doesn't need, but also effect resistance to the Aria for 20%. It's up to you what you want to do. I prefer the survivability. She has pretty low defenses though, but honestly, with the Stina and all that stuff around, it doesn't really matter. Very, very scuffed Troublemaker Crozet. Don't advise you to build them like this. If you do want to build them at 24k HP minimum, at 1500 defense and 220 speed with 100 effect resistance. This is just there in case my Pylus dies and I need a secondary tank to just help my backline survive. Bikin for Banshee. Violet, just standard build. I go with Pet Set over immunity because I believe it needs to die. I do have about, I think, 70 or 80k EHP on him, with a slightly higher defense distribution than normally. Preferably, you would go with like the 18k HP at 900 defense variant, so that you can annoy people on Decorvus and people with true damage. But I went with this one because I just like the stat distribution more. My damage is pretty low this time around. Usually I have 280 or higher crit damage, but I ran out of lifesteal gear, so it is what it is. Very bad LR crowd. Do not copy this. Very bad. But yeah, usually you want about 220 speed, 28k HP or 26k HP, around the same defense and 100 effect resistance. Inferno Kawazu, one of the goated units right now. I need to remove the critical hit chance from here for flat HP and effect resistance from somewhere here for flat HP. And he'll be at 18.8k HP. I do have plus 30 guiders. The beauty of this artifact is because he ignores effect resistance on his vigor buffed S3, he will be able to always apply the guiders, right? So there's no effect resistance that goes into account here, and no 15%. If you don't have Geithers, you can use Spear of Purification, Border Coin. Where is it? My Spear of Purification somewhere around here. Yeah, Spear of Purification to give him extra attack percentage as well, and Combat Readiness or Border Coin. My preferred EE is the Immunity. Or I have Silence right now, but usually I have the Immunity one. Because in most cases things die and my only risk of losing afterwards is getting CC'd. Then even though I cleanse, if there's a follow-up CC, right, there is the chance of me just not being able to S3 and then people just laugh at me. Fallen Cecilia, leftover gear, sort of a bruiser build. This is just used if there's a Savior Aiden on the Senya Winter team or the Winter Shoe team, right? Just there to take the hit, nothing else. You can run this on protection set, leftover gear, 0 speed, whatever you want. It's just there to protect them, and that's it. Shu, not the best build. I just went with a lot of tankiness that people don't instantly kill her and relatively high damage. Need to mod out effect resistance for more crit damage. But not a good build. I don't like the rat. Rat is annoying. Shu, go away. Little Queen Charlotte, pretty decent defenses. 3k attack, 295 crit damage, which stacks up with Hellcutter with the attack, right? Because she's so slow, usually you will have 100% crit chance by the end of it. I need to take 4 turns in front of me to get exactly 16%. But honestly speaking, you will be bringing it to the dark unit, which means I will already have 100% crit chance here, right? I could even lower crit chance even more, but I wanted her to be consistent to get other targets as well the moment the target is gone. This is used against Iravis, other dark units that don't have a specific way of controlling her. Very good unit, just don't use her with Adamant Shield, right? Because it doesn't stack. Use it with Aureus or something else if you have a different knight, right? Very solid unit to a lot of dark units. Even on Mish, she can kill a lot of things. Low Crescent Bellona, I personally prefer counter. Lifesteal is also an option, but I cannot reach these amount of stats, right? Not by any means the best Low Crescent Bellona out there. If you do want probably the best one I know of, or anyone will know of, ask Q and Ikoa. But I really love the defenses. The speed for me is on the lower end, but because it's counter, it often is good enough. One counter, just a single one, will usually hit for like 8k to 10k with this current build, and it is glorious whenever that happens. It speeds up fights incredibly fast. Lifesteal is quote-unquote safer, but the gear requirement for that, holy shit. Bellion, leftover gear, proc my, usually says Elbrus here, right? Proc my Elbrus and you are in for a Wall of Hurt if you're a cleaver. Hi Kaini, I hope you like it. Charlotte, currently a unit that's being used more because of Navy Captain Landy. That's why she has pretty decent defenses here and is on lifesteal, that way she can sustain herself. But your Sunglasses is really good because it's basically a built-in half Adamant Shield, right? Don't use it with Adamant Shield, obviously use it with Aureus or some other mitigation artifact. But this is very useful because this will always crit. Where is it? I don't see where it is. Any successful attack with this change deck will always result in a critical hit. Great. You have crit resistance, I will crit you anyway. GG. Same for Lone Crescent Bellona in that sense, by the way. A successful attack will always result in a critical hit. Perfect. Great. Great units against the current meta. Also allows you to hit your teammates that have the crit resistance buff, right? Terran Royal Guard. Yes. This unit is amazing. You know those Ahmed, Kisei, and other unit comps? If you run this alongside a Rowana, a Destina, a Yulha, a Senya, right? 2 green units, and there's a Kisei. Kisei will go into this and kill herself. Yes, that happens a lot. As we are exploring this comp right now, we usually put Guide to a Decision on her, on him, and you get the barrier, right? Even though we have relatively high defenses, sometimes Kiseis are built with triple torrent, and you can take upwards of 28, 29k damage, right? They will kill themselves, but you will be in a position where he could die immediately. Guide to a Decision, you get 30% of max health. In my cases, that's 10k, right? Around there, 8k to 9k. That is a lot of EHP at the start of the battle. If you don't have it, it's free from the guild shop, right? It's pretty chill. Aside from that, just make sure that this reflect is all the way up, because this allows you to kill the Kiseis. Navy Captain Landy, as you can see, I haven't fully awoken her, and I don't have any imprints, and I don't have a plus 30 Elbrus. However, this is a 430 gear score unit. Not the highest out there, there's people with higher, but this is going to be a 430 gear score unit, and it doesn't even look that impressive. Obviously, I still need to do 2 awakens on her, and I need to finish up her Molas on S2 and S1 and S3. but holy shit, this unit is amazing. Probably the best anti-cleave you could possibly have. The S2 passive, absolutely insane. You don't need as much damage as I have, but I don't have a lot of attack, so therefore, you know, I had to compensate somewhere. This allows me to be at 2.7k attack, technically speaking, with 260 crit damage, and after this is finished, it should be at 2.8k or 2.9k attack, because last two awakenings are attack percentage. Aside from that, you want her to be tanky. I don't really need the speed, I feel. I run immunity on her, therefore I can't really get CC'd at the start, and just counter, like, eventually I will counter, and eventually I will end someone's life with this, right? Perfect. And then we have Terranor Guard just for PvE. Yeah, those are my units. I hope I did a little bit of explaining on everything that I have built and the way I have them built. And if you have any questions, just send me a DM, ping me. If you need any build advice, by all means, ask me. Alright, Toushima out. Have a good one, guys.